Unmute. Good evening. I am Denise Best, writer and board member of Journey Writers, Inc. Welcome to Journey Writers Presents a Connecticut Authors Forum, which we hope will be the first of many. The authors we are showcasing and celebrating this evening are Nancy Slonim Arany, Jonathan Gilman, and Beth Gibbs. Each author will read an excerpt from his or her book, followed by questions from the audience. So please write your queries in the chat. We will answer as many as time allows. Let's get started with Nancy Slonim Arany. Nancy is the author of Writing from the Heart, Finding the Power of Your Inner Voice. She has been a commentator for NPR's All Things Considered and was a visiting writer at Trinity College in Hartford. Arany wrote a monthly column in McCall's Magazine and was the recipient of the Eye of the Beholder Artist in Residence Award at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. Nancy won Teacher of the Year Award for 3 years. She taught at Harvard University for Robert Coles. She is the founder of the Chilmark Writing Workshop on Martha's Vineyard and teaches Jumpstart Your Memoir, Write It from the Heart at Esalen, Kripalu, and Omega Institutes. Her column, From the Heart, appears bi-weekly in the Martha's Vineyard Times. Nancy will be reading an excerpt, The South Will Not Rise Again, if in fact it rose the first time, from her recently published book, Memoir as Medicine, which will be available in 2022. Welcome, Nancy. Let's get started.
Thank you, sweetheart. It's an honor, and it's very exciting that I just actually got a contract for the book, and it is coming out. So now it's legit that I'm reading this. And this is true. In my junior year of high school, my principal called me into his office and asked me where I wanted to go to school. I said, Duke. He said, Duke? I said, yep. He said, why Duke? I said, because I heard it was the Yale of the South and Yale doesn't take girls. The year was 1958. He said, what about the University of Virginia? They have a great theater department. I said, yeah, but I don't want to go that far south. Dr. Reeves leaned over, opened a drawer, and pulled out an atlas. Here, he said, look, here's North Carolina and here's Virginia. He could have said you have no business going to college if you don't even know the map of the United States, but he didn't. Instead, he said, send away for a UVA catalog. You'll love it there. On the very first page, there was a black and white photograph of the daisy chain. 7 blonde girls with perfect page boy hairdos, organdy gowns, and white gloves sitting in a semicircle surrounded by a field of daisies. My immediate reaction was, I have to go there. If I go there, I will become a Gentile. And that, more than any education, was my goal. I had had it with being Jewish. Jews couldn't have Christmas. I had had Christmas envy from birth. Jews couldn't be cheerleaders. Jews couldn't go to the cotillion ball. Jews couldn't belong to the only country club. The biggest compliment I could get was, you don't look Jewish. Those blonde beauties were my ticket. The next page had photographs of the ring dance. Marines in full dress uniform from Quantico down the road were the escorts. And once again, the girls were picture perfect, feminine and beautiful. I was 6 feet tall and weighed in at 195. My hair was dirt brown and frizzed when the dew point was up. I would go to the University of Virginia and Eliza Doolittle would have nothing on me. My mother, who had been widowed only 3 years before and hadn't found her power yet, had never driven on a highway. So there I was that next September in seat 11B on a Greyhound bus from Hartford, Connecticut to Fredericksburg, Virginia, to begin my freshman year at Mary Washington College of the University of Virginia. For 9 hours and 1 changeover, I clutched my small suitcase, which held 3 cotton shirtwaist dresses with the traditional rope belt, 1 pair of sneakers, a cardigan sweater with pearl buttons that my mother had put on layaway, my band deodorant, a bar of Ivory soap, and a box of Kotex. I hadn't read the what to bring section thoroughly, so I didn't know we were supposed to bring our own towels and sheets. I didn't pack a great pillow because I hadn't yet learned what a great pillow felt like. I had never traveled farther than New Jersey. I was not prepared for what the South would be like. When I got off the bus, I looked for the ladies' room and saw that there were 2. one marked ladies and the other colored. I know I'm going to end up crying. I remember standing outside the two doors, not quite knowing what to do. There was no way I was going to buy into this backward, prejudiced, small town thinking. I was a Northerner. I had friends who were Negro. What was this? If I went into the one that said colored, how would people feel? Relieved or invaded? Finally, because my convictions of being an ally of the underdog were so strong, I tentatively walked into the one that said colored. But nothing would dampen my spirit. The campus was magnificent. Weeping willows, little bridges over trickling streams, brick buildings with white columns that told me Thomas Jefferson slept here. On the second night, a bunch of us were gathered in one of the blonde page boy girls' rooms. There were about 9 of us, and everyone was telling stories and jokes and laughing. I was in heaven. Then someone told an anti-Semitic joke. Everyone laughed, including me. I spent the next 2 days having a right brain, left brain argument with myself. What am I doing here? I should have gone to Cornell, but you are here. Think of yourself as a cultural exchange student. Maybe I just won't tell. Oh, and you're going to keep your secret for 4 years? If I tell them I'm Jewish, I won't have any friends. You came here to not be Jewish, didn't you? And on, I nattered. On the 5th night, I found myself in the same room with the same girls, listening to the same stories and brand new anti-Semitic jokes. And suddenly I raised my hand and then I called on myself. Yes, Nancy. I proceeded to tell a Jewish joke with my perfect Yiddish accent. Every blonde page boy roared with laughter, and as the giggles died down, I raised my hand again and I said, I'm a Jewish person. I'm the only one who can tell these jokes. There was a silence that was excruciatingly loud. And then one of the adorable page boys said, oh, Nancy, I just can't believe you're a Jew. You're just so darling. And another one said, I have got to bring him home to meet my daddy. He's not going to believe I met a Jew. Now, I knew in my heart that both of these were compliments, even though they sounded brutal. But it was the third one that threw me. She asked if she could touch my haya. She was clearly looking for horns. I wish I had known then what I found out years later. Moses, it turns out, was depicted by Michelangelo with 2 horns on his head. The Hebrew word for horn is close to the Hebrew word for beams of light. I let her touch my haya, and as soon as the laughter and the joy resumed, something shifted in me, and I knew I had to stay. For part of my tuition, I worked in the dining hall. All of the kitchen help were Black, and all of us scholarship girls were the waitresses. Once we had served everyone, we could go out into the dining room and eat at a special table reserved for the help. I usually chose to stay back and eat with the guys who were becoming my buds. We would sing the songs my sister and I used to listen to late at night on the one Black radio station out of Buffalo, New York. One day, in the middle of my solo singing at the top of my lungs, pretending to be one of the Platters, oh, yes, I'm the great pretender. Ooh. Mrs. McGinnis, my boss, came barreling out of the office yelling, Nancy, I know you are from North, but every time you bring them niggers up, I got to bring them back down. Now, if you want to keep the job, you got to go out front and eat with your people. I knew what she meant. My people were white people, but the guys I was working with were my people. Mrs. McGinnis caught me a few more times and I worried that I would lose my job. So I stopped hanging out with my sweet new friends and started behaving. One day, one of the guys came up to me waving tickets in his hand. Nancy, you like Jimmy Reed? I said yes, even though I didn't know who he was. I got 4 tickets, same Friday night at the Armory. I got 3 other Yankees to say yes, and we ordered a taxi to take us off campus. We were right on time, but not a soul was inside except for the 3 white policemen who greeted us with, y'all from up the college? Yeah, I answered. Well, one of the central casting cops said, this here's the Nigger Armory. We have tickets, I snapped and handed them over. Nancy Wilson blared over the loudspeakers and there were empty seats lining all 4 walls. One of the pasty-faced policemen came over to me, gesturing with his chin at the fat cop in the corner. Sarge wants to know how much you weigh. Without thinking, I gave a wise-ass answer. Tell him he can't count that high. Little did I know that that would be my undoing. We had a Friday night curfew of 10 p.m. and it was 9:27 when all my guys walked in. And when they saw me, they went, look at here, Nancy. Our Nancy's here. The twist was playing. Twist again like we did last summer. I jumped up and danced with all my buddies. We made it back to the dorm just as the headmistress was locking the door. I walked onto my floor. There was a phone call for me. Hi, Nancy, this is Marbeth Lawler. You are required to appear at Dean Hargrove's home tomorrow at 3 p.m. Required. Can you tell me what this is about? I asked. Her answer was chilling. I think you know. I hung up and called my mother. I said, I think I'm going to get thrown out of school tomorrow, but don't worry, because if I do, I'll be on the cover of Life. I didn't feel as glib as I sounded. The next day, I was seated on the couch in the middle of a semicircle of 7 deans and the president of the University of Virginia. I was shaking. Dean Hargrove spoke first. The entire community is shocked, she said. Even the niggers are shocked. Then Dean Honeywell spoke. Nancy, she said, in all earnest, would you dance with a maintenance man? I cleared my throat that didn't need clearing. I have been to 3 mixers here. All the boys I met were drunk and rude. The boys I danced with Friday night were respectful and polite. I work with them. I know them. They're my friends. Then the dean of social activities pulled a dainty flowered handkerchief from the cleavage of her ample bosom and said in her smoker's low-throated voice, my only complaint, Nancy, is that you would have gone to a social event. And as if the vapors had finally gotten her, with hanky in hand, she fanned herself, unescorted. Finally, they asked if I had anything to say. Barely able to find any volume, I spoke. I know when in Rome, I said, but I grew up with Negroes and they're just people with darker skin. They are just like us. Some are good and some are bad. The guys I work with are good. I don't think I should be punished because I don't think I did anything wrong. The president of the university said, Nancy, we're not going to throw you out. We don't want this kind of publicity. However, we will be watching you. We will be watching you became my rallying cry, because once I knew I was Teflon before Teflon, my inner rebel, who obviously had been under the influence of elephant tranquilizer, woke up, and I started my own little mini civil rights movement. A month before graduation, I played Flora in Tennessee Williams' 27 Wagons of Cotton, and in the middle of a sexy scene, the swing broke. Splayed on the floor, wearing a satin Victoria's Secret kind of slip, I went into a riff, a monologue about hypocrisy and the war between the states, as the Southerners called it, and the slave block they still had in the center of town. I said, when I first saw it, I wanted to throw red paint all over it. Who's up for a little trip to William Street this Friday? We'll call it Shabbat Tikkun Alum. Tennessee would have been proud, as I got to instigate my one-woman protest right there, center stage. At graduation, walking down the aisle, seeing my precious family, looking forward to flipping that tassel to the other side, I made myself memorize every detail for what I somehow knew I'd need for future reference. What happened up there? My mom asked after the ceremony. It seemed there was a perfect rhythm. Every girl stepped up onto the platform, received her diploma, shook hands with the 3 official-looking old people, and moved off and down the other side. But when you got up there, the rhythm broke. The dean said something to you, and they all broke up laughing. What did he say, honey? I said, he said, Nancy, now that you're leaving us, the earth is finally gonna settle. The joke was on them, though. Virginia was right on the cusp of the 60s. When pot and cocaine and legal abortion and civil rights exploded, they probably yearned for my return. But staying all 4 years was the best thing I could have done. Running away would have kept me in the closet as a Jew. Instead, I left more Jewish than when I arrived, with my fantasy of becoming someone else put to rest. A bunch of Southern belles using Yiddish expressions sprinkled in their everyday conversations. Now that was a greps. I'm schwitzing. He's such a schnorrer. Oh, this old schmata? And a BA degree in English that would get me my first job teaching high school in San Diego. I had made peace with my dirt brown curls, planted and began watering the seeds of my own activism, and with the help of those beams of light, knew when the next person who thought they were paying me a compliment said, you don't look Jewish, I would belt out the beginning of my Haftorah and say, oh, but I am so very, very Thank you. I can never do anything without crying.
Well, that was wonderful, Nancy. Thank you.
Thank you, sweetie. Oh, you're muted.
That was an incredible story. Now, that experience you shared with us happened some time ago.
Oh, yeah, 1959.
How long was it after that that you, as you would say, put blood on the page? Was there a particular event that inspired you?
You know, I always wrote. I mean, it just came easily to me. The first thing I ever wrote was a birthday card to my mom because we weren't allowed to buy Hallmark cards. And I have no brother, but I have a sister. And I wrote, "Happy birthday to mom from Margie and Nancy and Tom and Tom." And my mother looked at the card and she said, "Oh, honey, this is wonderful, but who's Tom?" And I said, "Oh, it rhymes with mom." My mother lit up. And I swear that was the first validation. And as a little 7-year-old, I knew I was going to be a writer. She just said that was brilliant. So I think I always wrote.
And Andre wanted me to mention the magic that you make on the vineyard every summer with your writing workshop that the Journey Writers have been blessed to be able to take part in.
Yeah, get your books back here.
We will. Thank you so much, Nancy. Let me remind the audience to please get some writing, some answers, rather questions in the chat. We're gonna move on now to our next author, Jonathan Gilman. Jonathan will be reading from his book, My Father Humming, which its publisher called an enormously moving series of poems, which reads like a novel, unquote. It follows his father's decline with Alzheimer's as Jonathan accepts him, both who he had been and who he is becoming. My Father Humming was a finalist for the 2014 Patterson Poetry Prize won by Billy Collins. Jonathan is also the author of Looking In, a book of creative nonfiction which follows 10 high school-aged actors through the year of their participation in Looking In Theater, and Captivity, a novel about a woman taken captive by natives at the western edge of the Massachusetts colony. When after almost a year she is captured back, she has to decide which the true captivity was. For over 30 years, Jonathan was the head of the theater department at the Greater Hartford Academy of the Arts, a public magnet arts high school, and the director of Looking In Theater, a teen interactive social issue theater group. Here is Jonathan with an excerpt from My Father Humming. Welcome, Jonathan. Let's get started.
Denise. Thank you. Thank you, Journey Writers, for having me. It's an honor to be here. My father was a mathematician who was well known. He was also a graduate of Juilliard and played the classical piano, and they figure in the poems. I started writing these when he was having first stages of Alzheimer's, because I was trying to figure out what is going on here. Has he completely disappeared as who he was? Is there any way to reach him? What we discovered was touch was one way, holding his hand, but music was another one. And it runs through this a lot. And at the end, when he was able to hum along to me playing his piano, it was a revelation, because that meant that he could still make art. And not only that, he can make it with me. And that sort of changed lots of things. So here are a few of the poems from My Father Humming. The house with music in it. You step into the house and hear the music. Stop, breath held. Push the door shut behind you. Lower the groceries to the floor, hoping the bag won't crinkle. And stand, eyes shut, taken so far from sounds of the world outside, as if it doesn't exist. There is only in the other room, piano, player, and the music, passing through your pores, penetrating your heart, lodging there so deep, it's hard to imagine a time it wasn't there, or there might come another when you walk into nothing. His hands not on the keys, no magic in his fingers, vibration of the twisted strands of metal gone, the silence emptier for what it used to hold. Love notes. She comes home from a morning out, finds on the kitchen counter a note in his shaky hand. I love you. Her full name on the line below, and beneath that, taking up half the page, his name signed, first and last, as if he was 16, wanting to let the world know what he discovered and couldn't keep secret. She finds the same note all over the house, on the bathroom counter, the dining room table, one beside him in the study where he sits at the computer. She comes up behind him, puts her arms around his shoulders, slides her cheek next to his. I love you too, saying his name first and last, and nuzzling his ear, smiles as she adds her own, the one her parents gave her, and the one they've shared for all these years. He turns his head toward her. In his look, she sees he doesn't know what she's talking about. She picks the note up that sits beside him, kisses it, holds it in front for him to see. Still no response. His face is blank as the computer screen he's been staring at. Down the stairs. My father's going downstairs to bed, my mother helping. It looks like a disaster waiting to happen, tied together by a rope that runs from waist to waist, like the invisible tether which has bound them for so long. Neither can remember a time before when they were free to fall on their own, not pull the other with them. She's done this since the time he took a tumble, and it was hours before she got him up. At each step, his foot searches the air for the one below. My mother above, waiting, after he stood not moving for a while, reminding him, you're going down the stairs, the right foot next. At the landing, there's a chair he sits on, shuts his eyes. She rouses him with, only 9 more to go, puts her arm under his, tries to lift him. For a moment, it's not clear if he will make it. You have to help me here, she says. I can't do this by myself. And when he stands, points him down the stairs, puts his hand on the railing, steps back till the rope is taut between them, and on they go. My father humming. I'm at my father's piano, playing a piece he used to play, but not the way he played it. Not, he's sure, the way Herr Beethoven intended. He's hearing it, not sleeping as he often is, and he's not happy with it. Before, he would have yelled out, stop, or booed or yelled, you're trying to kill me. He's not saying much these days. Before I've played 5 notes, he's choking, loud and drastic. Stop now, I think, call 911, then rush up, see what I can do. The caretaker is there. She's raised the bed. He's sitting upright. Nothing else to do. Let him work it through. I keep playing. The choking gets louder, more alarming. A rattle in the throat, as if this is the end. My stomach tightens, but I don't stop. And this goes on a while. Duet for a son playing on his father's piano, while his father gasps his last. But then the choking lets up, gets quieter, changes to a cough, more like the clearing of the throat, and stops. He's still, and I'm still playing. I take a breath, relax. As I go on, I hear, so faint at first, I'm not sure what I'm hearing. He's humming tunelessly along with me, the way he used to when he was playing. It gets stronger, sure, there's no mistaking it. And we go on like this, the two of us, making music until the piece is done. Memorial service. At the memorial service, It's my father they're talking about. His name, it's said over and over. But it's me I'm hearing, as if I'm the one being buried here. No one else left between me and the void. I'm next. There's no escaping it. And after I have spoken and it is done, it's my two sons who come up to me and without a word, first one and then the other, hug and hug until I know, they know about the death of fathers, mine and theirs, their children's too, saying to me now what they won't be able to when our turns come. And the last one is called Endnotes. I sit down at my father's piano. The first slow notes of Beethoven's Moonlight echo in the room till the air is alive with them, striking to the bottom of the heart and lower, down to the core. Here, in this room, through these keys, these notes, these fingers, and this heart, what he gave me years ago, I now give back to him. And if I listen as I play, I still can hear his spirit humming loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. The whole book was amazing.
Thank you.
The poetry in My Father Humming is so bittersweet. I mean, there's love and loss, there's humor and disappointment, admiration and rebuke, a full spectrum of human emotions. Do you remember which of those inspired the first poem? And when did your poems become an actual book?
I have no idea what the first poem was. The interesting thing was that I had not written, I wrote poetry in college and then I stopped. I had not written in years and years. And in August, about 10 years ago, something said, you need to start writing poetry again. So I started writing poetry again. And then in November of that year, so that's like 3.5 months later, I started writing about my father. It's like, I really felt that something very strong that wasn't me wanted these poems to be written and wanted me to be the person who wrote them. And so I really can't say which the first one was or not, but once I started, it was obviously the way to connect and they just came out. So yeah.
They're wonderful. I understand exactly what your publisher said when he said they were poems that read like a novel, and they certainly do. And I enjoyed reading your book very much. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time and your sharing that with us. We're going to come back to Jonathan and Nancy. And Nancy, you should know that a lot of people are writing in the chat, love you, miss you. That was wonderful, and so on and so forth. No questions, but lots of love. But we're going to move on now to Beth Gibbs. Beth Gibbs, after working years for media, higher education, and nonprofit organizations, Beth Gibbs, who has a master's in art from Leicester University, is free-tired and pursuing her passions of writing, teaching, and leading workshops in yoga and self-awareness. She writes personal growth and popular fiction for mainstream audiences and uses her energy and sense of humor to inspire, inform, and entertain. She has published a personal growth book entitled Enlighten Up, Finding Clarity, Contentment, and Resilience in a Complicated World, and a children's book, Oogie Boogie, the Elephant Yogi. Let's hear an excerpt now from Enlighten Up. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I've enjoyed listening to my fellow panelists. So for me to get started, I'm just going to hold up the cover of my book. It's a personal growth book, and Denise has given you the title, Enlighten Up, Finding Clarity, Contentment, and Resilience in a Complicated World. And in the book, I will take you on a 9-step journey through your 5 layers of self-awareness. And I'm going to start by giving you a little bit more background on exactly what that means. And I'm going to start with a quote by Jawaharlal Nehru, who said, "Life is like a game of cards. The hand that is dealt you represents determinism. The way you play is your own will." Becoming self-aware is how you learn to play your game of cards. It's the foundation needed to build a balanced life and find clarity, contentment, and resilience in the complicated world that we all share. As a yoga teacher and a keen observer of life, I've witnessed in others and personally experienced how a lack of self-awareness gets in the way of navigating life's ups and downs. Now, many personal growth books on this topic will offer advice and rules and programs focused on mind-body connection, because thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and attitudes can positively or negatively affect our biological functioning and behavior. But what they often do not include are these 3 additional layers of self-awareness: energy, intuition, and spirituality. Enlighten Up is the first book to present a contemporary view of self-awareness, and it's based on a 3,000-year-old model from the Upanishads, which is an East Indian wisdom tradition. And the 5 layers of self-awareness provide a broader foundation for self-exploration than the more well-known mind-body model. So the bookshelves in dorms, apartments, and homes that I've lived in, as well as the condo I live in now, have held stacks and stacks of self-help and personal growth books. And the ones I benefited from most were those in which the authors shared how they use their tips, techniques, programs, or advice to help them with their life issues. So it's not surprising that when I found myself writing this book, I did it by sharing my experiences and stories and reflections, along with those of many of my colleagues, friends, and students. So next, what is self-awareness? Self-awareness is the ability to see, understand, and accept our beliefs, habits, and behavior without judgment. Then we can consciously choose to make changes, remain unchanged with full awareness of the consequences, or find acceptance and peace of mind if change is not possible. And cultivating this self-awareness is a lifelong journey that can be started at any age. So what exactly is this 5-layer model that I'm talking about? Well, I'm going to just kind of go through quickly what these 5 layers are. The first is physical. This is your body and your environment. It's you, your size, shape, gender identification, race, ethnicity, anatomy, physiology, your home, and the planet that we all share. Second layer is energetic. This includes your breath and your energy levels. The oxygen you breathe nourishes your body and your brain and sustains life. Your energy is that invisible life force that animates you at all levels and enables you to think, create, move, love, work, and navigate all that life brings. Third layer, mental, your thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. This is how you think, what you think about, what you believe, and how you experience and express your emotions and your thoughts. The fourth layer is intuitive wisdom. This is the witness, the ability to observe all of your layers and your life with compassion and without judgment, to consciously make, or not, more informed choices. And the fifth layer is bliss. This is your connection to something larger than yourself, and it can be spiritual, religious, or a deep connection to a healthy passion or the natural world. So I'm going to read a little bit, a personal story from my energy layer, and it's titled, Nobody Loves Perfect. I'm a perfectionist. I judge and should on myself and others all the time. And my brand of maladaptive perfectionism is exhausting. So I searched for the perfect cure, a pill, a potion, or a program. And if there were going to be a pill, it would be called perfectomycin. But then there'd be all those side effects. And anyway, there's good news and there's bad news because there is no pill called perfectomycin. So that's the bad news. There's no easy fix. The good news, I'm in recovery. I finally realized that the slower process of working through my 5 layers of self-awareness to unearth the reasons that I had chosen perfectionism as a coping mechanism in the first place seemed a better use of my energy. I needed to understand how my mental state was getting in the way of me enlightening up. So, how am I doing? It's a process. So I started first with the 5 obstacles to self-awareness, and they are: 1, ignorance, not seeing things as they are. I used to think that I was always right and superior to others. Now I understand I'm not better than anyone else, except maybe for a few members of my family and a couple of friends. I'm in recovery. It's a process. 2, ego. If you did something lame, dumb, or disorganized, I'd want to say, I know what your problem is. I do have the time to tell you about it. And I have a complete list of all the things that you need to do to fix yourself. Now I have learned to zip my lip, and I do not give advice unless I'm asked for it. Most of the time, I'm in recovery. It's a process. 3, attachment to results. I used to dot every I, control freak, cross every T, control freak, because my results had to be perfect. But now I know that there are only 4 results to anything I do. They are what I expect, more than I expect, less than I expect, or the unexpected. And spoiler alert, none of them will ever be perfect. This one sucks. It's hard, but I'm in recovery. It's a process. 4, unreasonable dislikes. I used to dislike other perfectionists who acted like they're better than me. But oh my God, maybe they were. But now I know they're okay. I'm okay. You're okay. Everyone is okay. Except for a few members of my family and a couple of friends, because remember, I'm in recovery and it's a process. 5, fear. Fear. Fear of what? Of being found out as a fake and a fraud. It's the imposter syndrome, the core reason for my style of maladaptive perfectionism. Psh, mind blown. And what to do? Salvador Dali, the artist, said it best. He said, have no fear of perfection. You'll never reach it. And I'm okay with that. Not yet. Remember, I'm in recovery. It's a process. Wish me luck.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
And when I read your book, I realized, maybe it's a process for me as well.
Absolutely. It's a process for everyone.
Indeed it is. And someone asked, and I think you've answered the question, but I'm going to give you a chance. Maybe you want to add something, because you had just started the 4th layer, just finished the 4th layer when this question came in. I thought it was so timely. Any tips on how to accept without judging? I judge myself for not accepting.
Yes, and you start with the witness. You know that old phrase, can I get a witness? Well, that asks the question, but everybody has a witness. We just have to tune into that witness. And I sort of visualize it as a Venn diagram, 2 concentric circles that are side by side, and then they overlap maybe by 30%. So like, for instance, I think a lot of us have had this feeling that I'm not enough. So in the mind and in the witness, they see it 2 different ways. In the mind, if I see in my mind, I'm not enough, I might eventually express that in some kind of addictive, self-sabotaging behavior. My witness, which is, it sees everything that's true. And so it says, okay, I see this belief that you think you're not enough. It's not true. It could come from messages that you've received through culture, through family, through friends, through a lot of different places. But I'm going to keep popping this message across that little intersection where the circles intersect. And I'm going to keep saying, it's not true. It's not true. It's not true. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge yourself. Have compassion. And sooner or later, if you're able to open the mind and stretch it a little further, you're going to get the message. And then you're going to say, oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Then I can accept. Once I understand the whole gestalt of where that belief came from, why I still believe it, then I can manage to change it. That's when I can use my conscious mind to make that change. Or I can say, I'm not ready to make that change. There will be consequences, and I've got to be able to accept those consequences. Or if for some reason, let's say someone has a terminal illness and change can't be made there, at least if you've opened your witness, you can find peace and acceptance of the situation you're in. So whenever you get into those little conundrums about, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know if I can do that, the first step is ask yourself, what is my witness telling me?
Wow. Thank you. That is very, very good advice. And I found that book had a wealth of good advice. And I really wish we had more time. This was not enough time. You know, we grappled with this. It would be 1 hour, should be 2 hours. And, you know, we all know that we're Zoomed out most weeks, this being a Friday. And Zoom is usually good for an hour. And then I start going, So I think we cut ourselves short. I would like to ask you more questions, Beth. I have a ton of questions of my own because I did read your book and it's lovely. I'm so glad that I had an opportunity to read it. And I didn't think it could get any better because I love your novels. They're so captivating. I'm going to ask you one quick question because that wasn't my question.
Okay.
What was more difficult, writing the fiction or writing the self-help book? And then we're going to go on to a discussion.
Okay. They were different because I found that when you're writing nonfiction, you've got facts that you can use. And if you're telling personal stories, you kind of know what the truth of those are and you can kind of let them flow. When I wrote Oogie Boogie, the Elephant Yogi, those were stories of 7 kids who had issues and went to Oogie Boogie for help. So working with dialogue, trying to figure out how much was enough and how much was too much. How much do I show? How much do I tell? That was all very new to me because I was also finding out that there's a big difference between literary fiction and what I was writing. And so now that I am clear that I am not writing literary fiction, I'm kind of writing what I call genre fiction. So it's just, I want a beginning, a middle, and an end. So it's really interesting to learn that. So that was the biggest difference I had. I like writing both nonfiction and fiction. So I'm going to continue to do both. And they have different challenges, that's all.
Thank you. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I've been doing a little bit of both myself. So now we have so many wonderful questions here. I just want to say, I want to read a couple of comments. Jonathan, you have a gift for processing and communicating the universal journey of love, loss, and life through words. So beautiful. Thank you for that gift. And I totally agree with that. There's a question here that is for both Nancy and Jonathan from Carla Dean. Nancy and Jonathan's pieces are so personal and so moving. How do you break through the wall of reserve we often put up that prevents us from leaving it on the page? And that was a question that I had too. So maybe the two of you can talk about that.
I just want to say that the whole thing was gorgeous. All of your pieces were gorgeous. The falling on their own when they could fall on their own? Oh my God. You know what I'm talking about, right? I'm not quoting you very well, but
No, you are, yeah,
that
thank
was
you.
gorgeous, gorgeous. So you answer the question and then I'll answer the
Well,
question.
I wasn't sure about the ending of that question, Denise.
Okay, we did it again. And I think what they're asking was what I was wondering, and I think it's the same thing. You know, when it's so deep and so personal and so heartfelt, were you at all concerned about sharing that with the world, actually publishing that? How do you break through the wall of reserve, they ask? We often put up that prevents us from leaving it all on the page. How do you take that next step that says, I'm sharing this, and I'm not going to be worried about how
Because
people take it?
somehow I think in the process, I got enough distance from it. I mean, it's interesting reading these poems. Somebody said, how do you read them to other people without breaking down? I break down when I'm reading to myself when I'm practicing. That's when all the emotion hits me. When I'm reading in public, I'm being a public person and giving this to other people. This is not quite the answer, but I thought I was writing about my experience, my mother's experience, my father's experience. And that's all I was focused on. I wasn't thinking about anything else. But then the first time I read in public, it turned out I was telling other people's experience too. And that was really important for me, that I'm doing this to help, to communicate. There are a lot of people who feel this. I've gotten more response from this book than any other book I've written. And they can't quite put it in words. So that whatever wanted me to write it wanted me to put it in words for them too. That makes sense. So it's not just about me anymore. I'm the fulcrum that helps this along. Does that make sense?
It does. It does make sense. Nancy, what do you think? How would you answer?
For me, I have no boundaries. So it's very easy for me to tell all. I wrote a piece on growing up poor. And I had some wealthy friends visiting and they had read the piece, and this really good friends, but I guess, new friends. She didn't know how I grew up. And she said, how can you publish that? Do you have no shame about it? And I said, I think shame is the biggest emotion that people have to deal with. Shame is worse than any of them. And no, I didn't do anything to be poor. It wasn't my fault. And it's informed everything that I've done. I have more gratitude probably for the way I live now. But in terms of making that leap, I mean, that's the whole thing about my workshop, is that you're sitting with 14 other people who are telling the truth about what has happened to them. And my only rule, as you know, Denise, is, tell so-and-so what you loved. And so no one's going to get any criticism. And when people realize they're safe, and they get this story out of for me, it really is medicine, because you're carrying the sorrow in your kidneys, in your pancreas, in your heart, and getting the stuff out of your body onto the page is healing. And so I think what happens is, when I give the personal narrative as a prompt, and the first person is willing to say, this is who I am, this is what happened to me, and everybody's listening, and they're getting the kind of response like, oh my God, that was gorgeous. Oh, I know that happened to me. My father was, that's why workshops are so great. That's why being in a writing group is so great, because you get validation, you get people that are listening from the heart instead of listening to give you a D-. But it is hard to make that leap and say, this is who I am, because we have grown up with criticism and judgment. Your boss is going to give you a grade. Your husband's going to give you a grade. The teacher gave you a grade. So you're always aware of, I'm not, what Beth was saying, I'm not good enough. That's on everybody's plate. Everybody thinks they're not worthy, they're not good enough. So when you find out, not only am I not only am I good enough, but I'm brilliant, then it inspires for the next thing. And that's why I think being able to take the chance of being honesty, it pays off. But you don't know that. You don't know that till you're in a circle of safety.
Absolutely right. And I just want to throw in there real quick that that's what Journey Writers brings to the table as well. So thank you for that. Now, I hope I'm not screwing up this brother's name, Shiraladon. Shiraladon Brave. Mr. Brave asked for this for Beth. I believe you refer to your book as self-help. Listening to your reading of it, how else would you describe it? By the way, I love your delivery, as we all do.
Thank you. I went back and forth between self-help and personal growth, and I landed on the side of personal growth, but it is very easy to sort of mix those up. I guess in my thinking, self-help books say, this is the problem. If you have the problem, here is the solution. And it might be a weekend workshop, or it might be a 12-step program, or a month long of CDs, of lectures to listen to, or journaling, etc. So what I have done is said, we all have this problem. And here's another way of looking at every single problem we could possibly have. Here is how, or here are ways that my friends and I have dealt with some of these problems using this model of 5 layers of self-awareness. And nowhere do I say, this is the answer for you. I say, this has been helpful for myself and the people that you meet in my book. And following each essay are goals, such as learning to pay attention, or being able to witness, or using discipline. And that is followed by several very accessible tips and easy practices that work through all 5 layers. You know, exercises for the body, some gentle breathing, some mind exercises, some suggestions on how to witness. And I always say, only do those that you are called, that call to you. So, because this is sort of like a Walmart of ideas, and you just go up and down the shelves and pick something that calls to you. So that's how, hopefully I've answered this question. If not, give me a follow-up and I'll keep trying.
I think you did a great job with a tough question. There are so many good comments in here. I too felt that that Jonathan's book was one that was relatable for a lot of people, and a lot of people needed to hear that. And then as I read the other two authors, there was the same kind of thing. I mean, different books, different genres, but still, it was the same sort of release that said, this is what's going on inside, and I'm sharing it, and people can relate to that and say, oh, okay, so I should be less judgmental. I should check myself in how I see myself against the world. I should be more tolerant. I mean, there's so many things that I learned from reading all of your works. It's just amazing. Tidra Hoskins says to Jonathan, awesome words. Thanks for sharing. LaShawn says, very nice. Liston says, thank you. And Leslie Bevan says, I really like the complexity of the phrase endnotes. Jonathan, you have a gift for processing and communicating the universal journey of love, loss, and life through words. So beautiful. Thank you for that gift. And Nance, we love you. If you recall, I was at your graduation with my father, Birch, and Pappy. All our love, Sue and Stu. So lots of love out there for all of you. It's great. Naima Edwards says, impressive. Let's see. And I urge you to look in the chat so that you can see some of these personal writings. But I want to know, and before we go, let's try to get a dialogue going amongst the 3 of you. What's your process? You know, I'll just say a little bit about mine to give you an idea of what I want to hear. I get up early in the morning. I didn't brush my teeth. I get something to drink. I didn't eat because I had a thought when I was dreaming, I guess, or the moment I woke up, and I got to get that thought on the paper right now. And when I'm in that zone, I'm not answering the phone. I'm not answering the bell, and I'm not answering any ringing unless I hear a siren outside my door, which says, oh, your house is burning down. Then I suppose I'll put close the laptop. Go ahead, Jonathan. What's your process?
Yeah, you better do that. But mine's very much like yours. I try to get up early in the morning when it's still dark, and I'm sort of in a bubble, and time disappears. And I write. I have a journal. I write in it as often as I can. Sometimes it's ideas, sometimes it's thoughts. But there it is. I go back to it and I say, well, that was pretty good, And sometimes I'll write something and even have printed it and put it up, and I forget about it. I'm moving on to something else. Just an exploration of whatever it is. But it's a long way. And I think this is important for a writer, that initial first time through is really important. But the second part is the hardest. To go back and you know what you're doing now. You think that you know what you're doing now, trying to revise it. That's work.
That's the
There's
word.
nothing that makes that easy.
That's my favorite part.
Well, I love it, but it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard, but it's my favorite part because getting it, you're right, getting it out. And my process is kind of similar. I get up in the morning, I meditate, maybe do some stretches, and then I write until about 10 or 11, or as long as I can go until my brain stops. And then I might go back to something later on in the day. And I keep pen and paper near me all the time because you just never know when something's going to pop. And when it pops, like Denise said, you got to get it down because it will go. Absolutely. But I absolutely love the crafting of the work once you've got the initial piece down, and then you go back and you craft, and then you get notes that pop up about the crafting, about using this word versus that word. So yeah, it kept me sane during hashtag 2020, let me tell you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Nancy, what's it like in that little hobbit house you live in?
Well, first of all, I sleep till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. No, I'm just kidding. But my writing process is much more about listening. The other day, I'm writing a piece because the other day I overheard a woman say, "Oh, I have 8 guests coming." And I said to her, "Do you know how many sheets that's going to be and how many towels?" And I only have 1 washing machine. I wrote it down. I said it in my phone. I tape in my phone. And I'm writing a whole piece about generosity and about what it's like now when everybody's coming out of the woodwork and everybody wants to come visit. And there's a Rumi poem about being a guest, and it's really not.
Oh yes, that's my favorite.
It's gorgeous.
The guest house. Yes.
The guest house. So I'm putting that in the piece, and now I will have to do some work on it because I swim and I write. When I'm swimming, I'm writing. And I'm thinking to myself, well, actually the piece has nothing to do with real guests. It's about adversity. It's about cancer. It's about, are you going to welcome sorrow? Are you going to welcome? So I have to revise because I used her as my jumping off place. So I just listen. And if something's going on in my own heart, if something's going on in my own life that's difficult, that's where it goes onto the page. So really, I have this column, which is fabulous because it's making me write, and I'm in a writing group. The writing group is Tuesday. Every Monday, I write something because Tuesday we read to each other, or I write it Tuesday morning. So I know I have to have something. But I don't really write every day. I do meditate every day. If you sat in on my meditation, it goes something like this. Did I get the Parmesan Reggiano? May all beings, oh my God, this is so tight. I gotta loosen. Maybe I should stop eating the pasta.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, but I do it every single day, half hour.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the goal. I mean, we can only sit down and choose our technique, and then we have to watch what happens. And what happens to you happens to everybody, except maybe the monks who, go out naked in the snow and breathe for 2 hours. I mean, but hey, I'm nowhere near there, nor do I want to be.
And people who, like me, who can't swim, so I can't write while I'm swimming. I'm probably going to drown. But Princess Sharp wants to say to all of the guests that she loves your work, and she wants to know what I want to know too. What was the publishing process?
Oh. Well, I'm going to start with this one because I just got this thing. I'm getting a contract any day. So I wrote a memoir. And I worked on it probably 10 years. I lost it. Then my husband had to buy tools to get the hard drive out. We went to a special recovery place in Boston. They never found it. I started all over again. I know it killed me because I was editing as I was going, which I never do. And it was really good. I thought it was really good. So then I hired somebody. I paid a huge amount of money. He did nothing. And then I just started all over again. And I started writing. So I wrote for many years, off and on. And you probably don't know this, most of you, but my son got diabetes at 9 months old, and at 22 he got MS. And he really has been my material because I absolutely he gave me my priorities. Before he got sick, I thought going to Carly Simon's for brunch was the most important thing in the world. When he got sick, I found out the most important thing in the world was being with him, hanging with him, learning from him, listening to him. It really, I had a broken heart, and I think broken heart's really important to have. So I wrote and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I have a very big deal agent, and I sent her the memoir when I was finally finished. I got 17 rejections. Harcourt Brace, Simon and Schuster. They didn't bother me. There were two things I said, each one, because the rejections were gorgeous. Thank you for sending Nancy Sloan Marini's beautiful memoir. I cried, I laughed. It was so powerful, so moving. The end, I didn't get all 17 of them. I got 11 of them. The end, every one of them said, somehow I can't see it on my list, whatever the fuck that means, if you'll pardon the expression. So I figured with those great rejections that it was their problem. I said, okay, so it's going to find a home. There were two things I said. I don't want it to come out during COVID, and I want to be 80 when it comes out. I turned 80 May 1st.
No way.
Yeah. I did. Okay, before that, we got to go back a little bit. So I'm sorry I'm taking so much time, but this is really, I'm so thrilled with what happened. So about last August, this major guy who publishes Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle, all my teachers, called me and asked me to teach with him in August. I taught with him. It was on Zoom. I saw him laughing when I was funny. I saw him really responding, and I thought, this is the guy. This is the guy for the memoir. This is after all my rejections. I was ecstatic to have him. I was going to wait till the thing was over. And then it was his turn to do his lecture. And I tuned in late. And this is what I heard him say. I hate memoir. I was born in New Jersey and my mother did this and I almost died. It was like he was going to be my ace in the hole. I couldn't sleep that night. I woke up in the morning. I looked at his list. They were all self-help. I said, okay, I'm going to write how to jumpstart your memoir. I worked on it for 7 months. I titled it a month ago, Memoir as Medicine. I sent it to him and they bought it. And the senior editor called me on the phone yesterday. And he said, everyone in the acquisitions department loved it. We were all struck by it, me the most. He said, I get thousands of these. I started reading it and I couldn't put it down. My life has totally changed. I am ecstatic. The money is nothing. They're not offering a lot of money, but it's a major publisher. So there you go. That was my publishing story.
That is wonderful, wonderful. Congratulations.
Okay, I'll chime in a little bit quickly. My first book, the Ogie Bogie book, I had sent out a couple of proposals that got nowhere. And I wanted to get it out fast because I'd been working with kids in yoga since 1999. And this was the curriculum for the program we were running. So I self-published. It was a very interesting journey. It was a very hard journey. I don't ever want to do that again, but I did it. So with Enlighten Up, I went through the drill. I sent it out to traditional publishers. I got lots of rejections, some I'd never heard from. And then I met a woman who runs a hybrid publishing company where you're really partnering with the publishing company. You do pay up front. So you have to make sure you're choosing, if you're going to go hybrid, you have to really research them. And I found myself a charm. They did amazing editing and artwork, everything, all the stuff I do not ever want to do. They did it all. And then when the books get sold, they split the royalties right in half. And they're still partnering with me. I still get emails a couple times a week. Here's an opportunity to promote your book. What do you think? Do you think you want to do this? Can you do this? Do you have time for that? So I would definitely go with them again. I have sent proposals to a couple for my next book. I sent proposals again, went through that process. I had one come through from Shambhala, which is a fairly well-known kind of new age publisher. They loved it. They loved my proposal. Then the editor says, how do you feel about changing the title? And my response is, well, the title I chose it because I got so much good feedback from Enlighten Up, because it's one of the chapters in Enlighten Up. So I'm not sure about that. And then it was, well, and how can we work together to change how you're presenting your material? And I said, wait a minute. I said, and I knew that if I went with this, I was going to get pennies up front. And then I was still going to have to do all the work of promoting and marketing. So I said no. And so when I finish it, I'm going to go back to my hybrid publisher, because I will retain control. I will have the final say on what it looks like, on the editing notes, on the illustrations, on everything. So for me, unless some miracle happens, hybrid publishing is the way I'm going to go, because I'm just very satisfied with how it's working out.
That's a new concept for me, so I'll
Yes.
have to talk to you offline
Sure.
more about that.
Yep, absolutely.
Jonathan, what was your process
For
like?
me, well, I hadn't written poetry, so I made a living doing theater. So I had no connection in any kind of poetry way. I hadn't had anything published anywhere. It's not a big market thing anyway. Nobody makes money on it. But my wife was in a writing group with a person who was really important locally, a poet, and he also was the head of a press. And so he'd been telling her he wanted her to write a book of poetry. And she called him up and said, I have a book for you. And he said, but it's not mine, it's my husband's. But so she said, basically, because of knowing somebody, and a lot of things is knowing somebody, theater, writing, we did. And the thing is, my wife was also my editor, and nothing leaves the house until it's in pretty good shape.
Mhm.
So at one point, the editor said, wow, these are a lot better than most of the things I get, but they don't need as much work. And I said, yes, this is why. So it was a good process, but it did a fantastically beautiful job with the book, but wasn't really clear about how to market it outside Connecticut. So if I write another book of poetry, I don't know what I'll do.
I had my first book, which I got a $25,000 advance for, and it was published by Hyperion, a big deal. I got a call 2 years ago from Sounds True, which is another spiritual good one. And she said, we want to republish your book. We want to have an ebook. We want you to tape it. I've wanted to tape it because, Beth, you sound so brilliant and you're so articulate, and I know I could do that, and I wanted to tape it. So she said, you just write a new intro. Do you own the rights? And I said, I don't know. And so I called my agent, and she said, no, you don't own your rights. And I called the people back, and I said, this one editor, and I said, I don't. She said, well, get your rights and call me, because we want to do the book. And it was thrilling because they were going to give me money and I was going to get to tape it. It took a year. I don't know why it took so long, but I got my rights, and I called, and that editor was gone. And now I had to go to CreateSpace, which is self-publishing on Amazon. It's not Hyperion anymore. I can't even figure out how to buy the book. I need 100 copies right now because I'm going to go teach somewhere. I can't even the whole thing is just like a mess. But, that's what happened. Communication, man. Oh, we love it. We're going to have you tape it. She's gone.
Wow.
I know. So be very careful.
Oh, yes.
Hybrid thing sounds great. Can I ask you a question? How much, would you mind saying how much you spent on the hybrid thing?
Oh, yes, me? Yeah. I spent for my book, which is about 70,000 words and probably close to 290 pages.
Wow.
I paid $7,000 for the editing, some printing, the artwork, the illustration, the cover, the Library of Congress, all the stuff. All I had to do was spend time on Zoom with her over, let me see, I think I signed the contract in July and the book came out in January. And we worked hard all summer long. So it was Zoom calls, but I got the final say on everything. For me, it's money well spent, because I think if you have a super good agent, or if you're really famous and have thousands of people on, followers on Facebook and Twitter, you can get a traditional publisher deal piece of cake. I don't, and plus I have a niche audience in a way. So the book's been doing I think I wasn't sure how it was going to do, but she said it's doing very well. You should be proud of yourself. So
That's great.
yeah.
That's one of the things that all the people ask me is how my social media presence is. I have no Twitter account. I don't have any, I have nothing.
Yeah.
And boy, that's, and actually the one of the guys that refused said, it doesn't really matter how good the book is. It's all about marketing.
That's right.
Oh,
That's
my,
right.
imagine.
I know. And that's today's marketing world.
Yeah,
So,
That's the saddest thing. So what you did was really smart, Beth, because you
Yeah.
got your book out there and now, you know, whether you get your money back or not, it doesn't matter. You wrote.
and
your
you
book.
know, actually I probably am going to end up getting my money back, but not necessarily from the book because of the subject matter of the book. I'm getting workshops. I've got Yoga U Online has asked me to do a course for them, which they're going to come and tape. And then when the course goes up, they sell it to other yoga training programs and I get royalties.
Fabulous.
I'm like, what?
Fabulous.
So
Like
I'm going to do another
bonus.
nonfiction book, and then I have a couple of fiction books that are related to all my characters are finding clarity, contentment, and resilience in a complicated world.
You're really good at titling. I mean, that elephant book is adorable.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, you're,
And you know what? Actually, Jonathan, your title, My Father,
wow.
gorgeous title.
All of the titles were fascinating to me. We're gonna have to wrap this up, unfortunately. So, I know, I'm so sorry. It really wasn't enough time.
No, it's perfect. You want to leave them hungry.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. So we can
Not
come
me, you want to
back
leave them
another
hungry.
time. I'm just gonna give each of you an opportunity to tell us your website,
Mhm.
you know, whatever way that you want people to reach you. Nancy, you have,
It's just the Chilmark Writing Workshop. Chilmark is the name of the town, CHILMARK. ChilmarkWritingWorkshop.com, and that's it.
yeah, because Francis wants to know, when is your next workshop?
Oh, I'm
Jonathan,
in August. Francis, get your butt out here.
Jonathan, what is your website, please?
It's myfatherhumming.com. And there's also I did tape it, so there's a CD of me reading most of the poems. And I really encourage people to avoid Amazon, mostly because I own books. They're going to come to me and they take all the profit and then sell it. Whereas I give free shipping, there's no taxes, things like that. And you buy the book and the CD, you get a discount. So yeah, myfatherhumming.com. It's pretty simple to remember.
Good, great, thank you. And Beth, you have a number of different
Well,
ways.
I'm keeping it simple. My website is bethgibbs.com. And yeah, so, and basically what I'd like to sort of say is you can get the book from the website, you can get it from Amazon, you can get it from Goodreads, you can get it from Barnes and Noble, or you can contact me and for a copy and I will autograph it and send it off to you. But also I do a newsletter, which I send out 6 times a year, not too much. I don't want to, load up people's email boxes because that's crazy. So I do it 6 times a year. And if you sign up for the newsletter, you will get 2 free tracks from a guided relaxation called Release, Relax, and Let Go.
Hmm.
So do we have each other's emails? Denise, can you send us the email?
Yes, you should, because the last few emails that I
Oh,
sent
yeah.
you, everybody's email on it.
Okay,
Yep.
Yep, yes, you
Great.
do.
I
Just
just,
meeting you guys.
great to meet you. Honored to be part of it.
So
Yes,
it's too
thank
bad
you.
that we couldn't be face to face, but thank you all for joining us today, the 3 authors and everybody who tuned in via YouTube. Toni Morrison wrote, "If there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it." And that's all she wrote. And pun intended, that she would be me. Thank you for joining us this evening. Go to journeywriters.org to take our short survey. Let us know if we should do this again. And if you have some suggestions on who we might engage next time. So thank you again. Go to journeywriters.org, take the survey, look at some wonderful writing, video presentations, and see a calendar of our events. Join our twice monthly writing workshops. Right now they're on Zoom, so you can join us from wherever you live, and become a member of Journey Writers as well. Thank you all for your participation. Don't forget to recognize Juneteenth tomorrow, June 19th. Peace and blessings, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Such an honor.